Welcome back to the series where I turn pride flags into Pokemon teams. For this video, I'm using the genderqueer flag. Now, the interesting thing about genderqueer is that it is an umbrella term that doesn't really have a concrete definition. It's kind of synonymous with being non-binary, but being non-binary is a part of the genderqueer umbrella. Basically, screw society, identify how you want to. Today, I will be using a full team of Pokemon with the colors of the genderqueer flag. Special thank you to Pina for coming up with this team idea. If you have a pride flag that you would like to see turned into a Pokemon team, be sure to comment below and I will use them. And if you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. There's definitely quite a lot of Pokemon that fit this color scheme. In my opinion, the best one is Shiny Blastoise. It has a lavender skin tone, the outer rim of its shell is white, and the shell itself does turn into that forest green shade. It embodies the three colors of the genderqueer flag perfectly, in my opinion. Now, there is another Pokemon that also embodies these colors very well, and that's Goodra, which is probably the best non-shiny Pokemon to have the color scheme of the genderqueer flag. I will say that not every Pokemon does have that specific shade of lavender purple on it. Case in point being Oranguru, which I think goes really well with this flag in my opinion because it has the purple cape and the green fan as well with its white body. Like, it does have the three colors, which is the most important thing, but Wigglytuff, specifically shiny Wigglytuff, also has these colors. Lavender skin, green genderqueer eyes, and the white belly definitely make this Pokemon a viable option for the genderqueer flag. Now, the next Pokemon I included on this team is one that I am personally extremely excited about. A long time ago, specifically in my Paper Mario team, I used a Tornadus, and this Tornadus was one of the highlights of my entire channel. It's a set that has Endure, Reversal, Acrobatics, and Knockoff with the Salac Berry to boost my speed on 1 HP, and Reversal also does more damage on 1 HP, and Acrobatics also doubles in base power after consuming the Salac Berry. It's one of my favorite sets that I've ever come up with, and Tornadus just so happens to have the colors of the genderqueer flag as well. So for the first time in over a year, I'm going to be using this exact Tornadus set, which I'm very excited about. These Pride Flag teams have really felt like I'm doing like an all-stars kind of series with the best Pokemon that I've ever used. The last Pokemon I have on this team is Floragato. Floragato has a shade of green that is kind of more akin to the forest green that you see on the genderqueer flag, which is why I ended up choosing it over Meowscarada. So that's the team of Pokemon that I am going to be using for this genderqueer flag team. Please let me know what you think, and without further ado, let's get right into the battles. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, lovely people. Today I am using a genderqueer flag team. Now, Pride Month may be over, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be slowing down or stopping any of my Pride Flag teams anytime soon. It's more like Pride Year on this channel, I guess. So, I have two really interesting battles to showcase in this video, as always, and these were some really weird battles. So, we have a turn 1 Terra right off the bat, and this Dragapult is going to turn into a bug. And I thought, okay, it's going to go for Terra Bug U-turn, which is kind of what I thought. Now, I have a physically defensive Oranguru. I was just able to take that U-turn from this life form Dragapult. I was like, holy smokes. I have a Rocky Helmet, so it did take some Rocky Helmet chip damage. And this set is Calm Mind, Psychic Noise, Thunderbolt, and Pain Split. Now, it's fully invested in physical defense. I have a bit of speed on this as well and some special defense, but I have no switches into the Staraptor, and at the very least the Staraptor is going to take some Rocky Helmet chip and recoil, and they're also life orb as well. I was like, holy smokes, they're already down to like half of their health. This is great. I can revenge KO them with my Floragato. Now, this is a Choice Scarf Floragato with U-turn. I have Play Rough on this as well, and Low Kick on this set. And I'm going to be able to take out the Staraptor, which is great because that Pokemon was definitely very good into me. So, as Dragapult swaps in, I'm going to be able to go for the Play Rough just to try to chip it, just to see what they want to do. They can't Dragon Dart me because I turned myself into a Fairy type, but they went for Phantom Force. So I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I could bring in my Wigglytuff and sponge the hit. Now, this Wigglytuff is a really interesting set. So the Phantom Force is not going to affect me. Now they're going to go for the U-turn, well, certainly just to try to pivot out. And This Wigglytuff has Stealth Rock, so I really wanted to get off the Stealth Rock, especially since this Dragapult is now a Bug type, and after the Rock's damage, it should be enough to take out the Dragapult. So as Quaxclaval swaps in, I'm going to be able to go for the Stealth Rock. Now, I also have Last Resort on this set, which only works if you use every move, so I only have 2 moves on this set. I just want to set up my rocks and then go for Last Resort. Unfortunately, the Quaxclaval takes me out with the Aqua Step. I was like, geez, I wasn't expecting to be taken out by that, so I'm gonna bring in my Goodra here. I thought I should be able to take like 3 of these. I should be able to get 3 hit KO, but it does well over half. I was like, okay, this thing has to be banded in some way. I'm running a really interesting offensive Goodra with Thunder. Unfortunately, the Quaxclaval just tanks it, and as I go for another Aqua Step, that is gonna be enough to take me out. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, surely this is like a choice banded Quaxclaval, because Goodra, even though it doesn't have a lot of good defense, I should have been able to tank that a lot better had it been had it not been choice banded. So I'm gonna bring in my Blastoise and see. But they go for close combat, but I'm able to take that. Oh my goodness, it wasn't actually choice banded. I think it was like Mystic Water or like Splash Plate or something. I do have max defense on this Blastoise as well, which was basically the only reason I was able to tank that close combat. This is like an assault vested, physically defensive Blastoise. So Dragapult comes in, gets hit by the rocks, and just faints. So that was a great appearance from Dragapult, by the way. So I was thankful that they didn't preserve that for like a sacrifice switch in. Now Sarita comes in, and I thought, okay, well, they're probably just going to revenge KO me with like a Trop Kick or a Petal Blizzard, but they go for Acupressure, and they end up getting a defense boost. I was like, oh, that's unfortunate because I have Body Press on this. This has a Surf, Body Press, Rapid Spin, and Flip Turn. It's a bit of a utility Blastoise. It's like physically defensive, and with the Assault Vest, it helps patch my special defense as well. So this Pokemon getting a defense boost was pretty problematic because my last Pokemon are both physical attackers, and as I go for the U-turn, this Sarita ends up being weakness policy. I was like, what in the world? That's bad. So I procced the weakness policy. I was like, okay, well, I'm not sure what they're gonna do here. They go for another Acupressure as I bring in my Tornadus, my absolute queen, and they get a special attack boost, thankfully. Now, this Tornadus is actually different from what I said in the intro. Like, it has the same move that I have Reversal, Acrobatics, Knockoff, and Endure on this, but instead of Terra Fighting, I have Terra Flying, which is going to boost the power of my Acrobatics. It should be boosted up to 60 as well because of Terrestrialization and how that works, and I am able to take out the Sarita because of the crit. I'm not sure if that mattered depending on how they invested their Sarita, but that was still a great KO for me to get. It might have mattered if it was like more health invested on this arena. So I'm just gonna go for another Acrobatics as I swap in their Whimsicott. They actually don't end up being Whimsicott though. They end up being the Hisuian Zoroark, and as they go for the Nasty Plot, I was like, oh, thanks goodness. Yes, thanks goodness. I was able to outspeed them, which they probably didn't expect. They probably expected to outspeed me, and I'm gonna go for the knockoff and take out the Hisuian Zoroark. They actually ended up being Focus Sash as well, so maybe they expected to outspeed, get a free Nasty Plot, and then just revenge KO me with like Shadow Ball or something, but now the last Pokemon is the Whimsicott, which starts setting up Cotton Guard. I was like, oh my goodness. After the Acupressure, Sarita, I didn't want to deal with more defense boosting grass types, so they are able to take it. But now this is also weakness policy. I was like, what is happening? These sets are pretty crazy. That's really saying something considering what I'm using. So this turn I thought, okay, well, they procced their weakness policy. Surely they're going to go for an attacking move like Wound Blast or something. So I went for the Endure, except that they went for another Cotton Guard. So I was like, shoot, they might just see right through me with like my strategy. Because now I revealed Endure, and like that's going to reveal my 1 HP Salac Berry like reversal acrobatic strategy potentially. So they end up being Leech Seed as well. So I was like, is this more of like a bulky Whimsicott or what? So they end up also having Hurricane. I was like, okay, they're Cotton Guard, Leech Seed, Hurricane, and I have no idea what their last move could be, but they do miss. So I was able to get off another play rough. They easily take me out with another Hurricane. But as I swap in my Tornadus, I was like, okay, well, surely they go for an attacking move on me. Maybe they won't expect me to like go for a Hurricane, but they do go for Hurricane, but they missed the Hurricane. I was like, come on. But then they end up going for Leaf Seed. The scary thing about this matchup was that Whimsicott does have a higher speed stat than Tornadus. So if they were like max speed, they would have been able to revenge KO me, like, but they weren't. And they go for Leaf Seed, I guess probably anticipating my Endure, and that is maybe the weirdest endgame I've ever had. Like, I was thankfully able to win, but what even was that endgame? That was crazy. But the fun does not stop there, I will assure you. This battle was also really interesting. Please like the video if you're enjoying this video, by the way. I definitely should mention that. So, I'm leading things off here with my Blastoise versus the Electros. Great lead on my part. I have to flip turn out of there. And I'm going to bring in my Wigglytuff. Really, I was hoping that I would just outspeed. First of all, this Electros has a ring target. What in the world? That means it could be hit by ground type moves. But like, why would anyone ever go for that in the first place? But why on earth does this have a ring target? What is going on? So as I set up my Stealth Rocks, I was able to outspeed the Electros, but they end up going for Crush Claw instead of another Wild Charge, and I'm able to take that. So I was like, this is great. I actually have a Custap area on this as well, and I'm going to be able to go for the Last Resort. I wasn't expecting me to end up getting off this Last Resort hit, but I end up taking out the Electros. What in the heck? So as the Scizor swaps in, I knew that like it was gonna go for Bullet Punch. I didn't really want to swap out because I'm using a Last Resort Wigglytuff. No reason for me to preserve that, and I was able to get off my rocks anyway. So bringing in my Goodra, I thankfully am able to land a Fire Blast and just one-shot the Scizor, which is fantastic. This has some crazy coverage. I have Blizzard, Thunder, Fire Blast, and Dragon Pulse on that Goodra. So as I bring in my Blastoise, I should be able to take this Salamence. It's running Moxie as well, since they didn't have Intimidate from before, but Outrage is doing so much damage to me. I am able to take that, and unfortunately, I don't have an Ice Beam. I just go for the Torrent boosted Surf, just to do as much damage as possible, but I thought to bring in my Oranguru, and I thought I would be able to tank this because I'm also physically defensive on this, and I wanted it to take Rocky Helmet damage on top of that, but they end up critical hitting me, which is really, really unfortunate. They do confuse themselves due to fatigue, but as they are confused, they unfortunately aren't going to be able to break through the confusion and take out my Oranguru, which is really unfortunate because I would have been able to absolutely take an Outrage from this, but unfortunately I'm going to get taken out. But they didn't go for Dragon Dances, which is nice because I'm going to be able to outspeed and revenge KO this Salamence with my Floragato. This Pokemon was actually really, really surprisingly good despite being like a middle evolution, and you know, being Choice Scarf allows me to get the jump start and just get surprise KOs on Pokemon that maybe weren't expecting. Like, what would Floragato do, to be honest? So as Mudsdale comes in, I knew that this Pokemon was going to be a very defensive nuisance. There was no reason for my Floragato to stay in, but they go for Heavy Slam. So my Blastoise is able to take that. And as I bring in Sylveon, I was like, this is great because I'm in Torrent and I can go for 2 Torrent boosted Surfs. I outspeed the Sylveon as well. And that does a lot of damage accumulative. It puts it in the red. They take me out with the Hyper Voice, but that was fine. I was able to get off a lot of damage versus the Sylveon, which is genuinely a threat to my team. So, going for the Play Rough, I'm going to turn myself into a Fairy type, and that's going to take out the Sylveon. Now, their last 2 Pokemon are the Mudsdale, which I obviously cannot stay in versus, and the Gallade in the back, which I was very, very worried about. So as I bring in my Goodra here, they're going to end up terrestrializing their Mudsdale. I was like, okay, well, maybe they're Terra Steel to maybe like resist my Play Rough, but they end up being Terra Ice, which is definitely an interesting Terra. I can't say I've ever seen Terra Ice Mudsdale. They go for the Heavy Slam on me, and oh my goodness, that does so... Why did that do so much damage? I know that Mudsdale is heavy, but I figured that Goodra was also heavy. That did so much damage, by the way. What the heck? So, I'm gonna go for the Fire Blast. Mudsdale already knows that I have Fire Blast because the Scizor got cooked. So the Gallade is gonna be able to tank that. Now, typically, Gallade would be Sharpness, but they end up going for the Drain Punch. Honestly, at this point, I had no switches into this Pokemon, so I kind of was thinking about sacrificing my Floragato to this. It was a really tough decision because I wasn't sure which 2 Pokemon I needed for this endgame. I knew that I needed Goodra to handle the Mudsdale. I always called it Mudbray, but I U-turn into my Tornadus here. So I thought, okay, well, I'm assuming that this might be sharpness despite the fact that it has Drain Punch. So I'm gonna go for the knockoff. Knockoff just barely misses the KO, and they have Justified. I forgot that I have Justified. It does also knock off the heavy duty boots, but as I go for the Psycho Cut, I was worried about the reason why I wasn't like I was hesitant about my Tornadus was because I was worried about this Gallade having Shadow Sneak, which would get around my Endure strategy, and it does end up having Shadow Sneak, which takes out my Tornadus. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of have to hope that I take this Shadow Sneak. I am able to take the Shadow Sneak though, thank goodness. And I'm going to go for the low kick. This Gallade is on a very low amount of health, and I am able to get... Look at that yo-yo animation. Oh my goodness. Floragato is so underrated. And so I went for low kick because it's also going to do a huge chunk of damage to Mudsdale because of how heavy it is, and because it's now an Ice type for some reason. I'm going to be able to take it out with one low kick, and that's the end of both games. Oh my goodness, what a weird team. What a crazy I just love this team, to be honest. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is SkyLaaa. Don't forget to smile, and I will see you all next time.